Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Know and Follow podcast. Thank you so much for downloading every week, for listening. It really means a lot to me. Those of you guys who have reached out, I really do appreciate it. Please leave a review if you're thinking about it or if you're listening. It really helps us to get this in front of more people. Today we sat down with Maryanne O'Neil. Maryanne attends Grace Community Church, and she is a foster parent, and May is National Foster Care Month. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about that, and she does a great job telling us how kind of we as a church can support and encourage those who are choosing foster care and how valuable foster care is in caring for children and spreading the gospel. And I'm excited to share the conversation with you, and without further ado, here it is. Maryanne, thank you so much for popping on with me. We have you here because it is Foster Care Awareness Month, the month of May, and you guys are foster parents and a member of, and you attend here at Grace Community Church. So I guess first of all, what service do you attend? And then talk about, your life as a foster parent. What did it look like for you guys to be called into that? Maybe, how it's been is a broad question, but, as much as kind of I guess you tell me what's that, what did the calling to that look like and how has the experience been?
So myself, my husband, Jack, and my two children, Jack and Jason, have been attending Grace for probably close to 2 years now. And we used to go to the morning, service, and now with our new foster daughter, she's been sick and unwell, so we've been doing a lot of online viewing lately. Okay. So that's a really nice thing that we have. So we're able to still connect with everybody. We have had our foster daughter, Chloe, in our care for the past year. She came to us as a surprise. We actually are not a traditional foster family. We are a kinship family, which means that we got a call one day that said, hey, we have this baby. She was left at a hospital. She needs a home. And there are no other relatives that are able to take her. Is that something that you would be willing to do?
So this is a child you are related to?
Related, it's a family friend. Yeah, it's a family friend. Okay. So we had to go through all of the same things that foster families go through. We had to get licensed, we had to get training and all of those things. And then we got in our car and we drove to Massachusetts because that's where Chloe was born. She was born in Boston. And we picked her up on a rainy day on April 4th. She came to us with no hat, no socks in the middle of a hailstorm, with 4 diapers, and clothes that did not fit her, with a half a can of formula.
And she's how old at this point?
So she was 6 months when we got her. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. And she's about 20 months now. And
the goal with kinship care versus foster care, I might need to be educated on some of this. Kinship care is really the intent for what? Or is there a difference in intent, or is it like, what is?
There's not a difference in intent. So basically what, the foster care system has identified is that children do better with families, so they have their family connections. So before foster children are actually placed into the general foster care with a general family, they will go and track down family members first to see if there's any family members or family friend connections that would be able to take the children. So, but it's the same. It does not mean that child will be adopted. Some of those children are reunified. It just really is on a case-by-case basis.
Right, based on the situation. And
exactly.
There are criteria for being able to care for the child. If you're somebody who is unable to...
Right.
Yeah. If termination of parental rights is on the table,
exactly,
there are criteria to avoid it in family court.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So it's the same process. The only difference is there's some sort of family connection. So you see a lot, actually nowadays with the drug epidemic, you see a lot of grandparents who are taking in their grandchildren.
Yeah.
And when we actually did our foster care training, we had 3 grandparents that were in the training with us.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And can I ask, how old are your older 2 boys?
So I have 2 older children. They're 25 and 22. And actually, Chloe came to us the week that my son had graduated from college.
Wow.
So she was not expected, but I always say she came at just the right time. Right. And she's our biggest blessing. So.
Yeah. So I asked the question of like, what did it look like for you to be called to it? It was more just you got a phone call.
I got a phone call. Yeah, we got a phone call. And I got a call from one of my best friends from high school. And, she kind of said my sister had another baby and I had grown up with them. And she had already adopted her older daughter. And she said, with her, she had adopted other children. She just wasn't able to take her. And she said, she's going to go into the system. And I said, no, she's not. We're going to take her.
Right.
So we took her. And what's beautiful about that is her biological sister gets to spend a lot of time with her, which is really, really nice. And that was kind of one of the things that drove us to do this, was recognizing the importance of keeping those sibling groups together.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we talk about kind of the foster care system, that's a term we've used a few times. Really, it's this idea of, if I say this right or wrong or indifferent, like the middle space between a child can no longer live with their parents for one reason or another, into when parental rights are terminated, and then that child can be adopted. And there is, what is the relationship between how many foster parents we need and how many we have? When I say we, let's just say state of Pennsylvania or nationally or whatever, however you.
I would say we don't have enough.
Okay.
We definitely don't have enough foster parents. We don't have enough foster parents for older children. We have children right now who reside in the Lancaster Youth Detention Center because they don't have a foster family available, because a lot of families who foster prefer to have younger children and not older children. So there is a big need for that. And, a lot of I would say all of the children that are within the foster care system have trauma. And we need trauma-informed foster care families who are willing to deal with different disabilities, different behaviors, and going to that knowingly that, this isn't going to be, I'm going to get this atypical child, because every single child looks different and unique, and be willing, it's a calling. Right. It really is a calling. To want to be able to, change a child's life. And I do want to say with foster care, the goal is always reunification. So it's not typically something someone gets into to adopt. Now, does that happen? Absolutely. But always the goal, we know that children do best if they're able to be reunified with their parents.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mentioned before we started recording, my wife had worked for Kobe's as a therapist, and you mentioning the trauma thing. She actually, as part of her work there, all the therapists are certified in TFCBT, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. And obviously with HIPAA laws, I don't know anything about any particular case, but it's a central enough point where a place that's working with foster kids is presuming that trauma is a part of that experience. Absolutely. Yeah. And so when we talk about foster care, Reed Drury, who also goes to our church, and he was actually on the podcast a few weeks ago, they just had a foster experience. And something that he said to me afterwards is, he said, I really feel like it's something every Christian should do once. And so obviously it's become something you're passionate about and more aware of. When you hear that, what is the feeling kind of you have in terms of really us all bearing the burden of these children that are in need of love, care, support, a home? What does that mean to you as being a Christian and a foster care provider?
I will say my biggest concern after personally working within the foster care system is that if foster care families don't have enough support, they might only step forward once. And we need those families to step forward more than that if we're going to be able to provide the care we need for all of the children, that are out there. I think that foster care is not necessarily for everybody, and that's okay. But I do think it's something that if somebody feels like they might be able to do it, that it's worth reaching out and getting more information about, for sure.
Yeah. It's really you said not for everybody, but I think everybody can probably do something. So if we're talking about foster care support, what does it look like for, Grace Community Church? If you're listening to this and you attend church and you're saying, yeah, I would love to, we can't take a kid in personally, but I would love to support. What does that look like? How could, somebody do it?
So when I told you the story about how we got Chloe and she had like no hat, no shoes, no nothing, we were like, Okay. What are we going to do? Our kids are 25 and 22. We have nothing left, right? So being able to be a support to say you're getting this foster care placement, because most foster care placements, they're not telling you ahead of time. They're like, hey, I got a baby at the hospital, or I've got these kids I got to remove in an hour. These are their ages. And most children are coming to your home with a black trash bag full of stuff. And a lot of it isn't all the stuff they need. So having somebody that can say, oh, I'm going to run to Target for you, or I'll run to, Walmart for you, or I can be at the house with you when the kids come to kind of help settle them in. Yes, exactly. Any of those things would be extremely helpful. Being able to say, check in on somebody who's taking care of kids and say, hey, are you having a good day today? Can I come by with a cup of coffee? Right. Can we hang out? Can we pray together? Yeah. Is there anything you want to be able to talk about? Maybe just being able to have a group or a space available at the church where people could come together and be able to network and have that opportunity. Being able to just be trauma-informed yourself and having that training so you can support other people. Maybe taking a teenager home for Christmas because you've got that time that you can't permanently have a kid in your home, but you can say, you know what, I know this kid has no place to go for Christmas. He's hanging out like at a home or somewhere. He doesn't have family. Can I bring him to the table with my family and give him that experience, I think there's so many ways, you can help. There's making a meal. I mean, we had Chloe sick a lot of times this winter. This was like a crazy winter for sickness. But having somebody that just, I don't know, like Ubered us a meal even, or did something like that would have been so helpful. Right. I just think the most important part, is being able to say, I am here if you need me. Right. And just knowing you have that support system, I think makes a world of difference.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things where I think most people would say, well, certainly we need foster parents, right? Like we need people to be caregivers in the foster care system. And then I think as we say it, we go, well, I can't do, you know what I mean? And then if it ends there, then, I guess it ends there. But if we instead say, okay, well, what can I do? If I can't be a care provider, can I make that burden of care easier on the foster parents so that they don't feel like, man, we took that on. It was an absolute nightmare for 12 weeks and thank goodness it's over. We're never going to do it again. And then it becomes, if we just talked about it in marketing terms, right, it takes somebody off the table as a potential future foster parent and the value of helping them through their needs and helping them along the way.
The other part of it is, there's a lot involved to take a child into your home because you want to love. Love is an action, right? So when these children come into your home, you want to love them like they're your own, and you do. And your heart breaks when they leave, right? Because that's a sad thing. You've done a great job, but if you've done it right, you form this amazing attachment. So it can feel pretty terrible when you have a child leave your house. It would also be nice to have people that could surround that family after that happened. Sure. To have that support, because that's the other part of it too. Yeah,
no, I absolutely hear that. So, something that was actually common in the early church, if you kind of read early church history, is the Christian communities would take on children who had been what's called left aside, which in the ancient Rome they would take if a child was maybe even a girl or disabled or something, they would put them on the outskirts of town to basically succumb to the elements. And it was common in the early church for the church to take on those children. And I think that's a kind of, I don't know, it's, less than 100 years from the ministry of Christ, and the church has really taken on this responsibility to say, we're going to care for the children in our midst. And I think there's a lot of talk about being pro-life in the church. But when we talk about being pro-whole life, foster care is part of that. And supporting people who are providing foster care is a part of that.
And I think as Christians, we're called to do that. I always like to say, that we're the hands and feet of Christ, right? We're out there supporting those families and supporting those children because, the other part of it is there are children in the foster care system that never get adopted. Right. And then they're let go from this, this system, and then what do those statistics look like? They don't always look good. Right.
Yeah. My wife told me about the SWAN registry, which is children who are disabled who the state takes out ads to attempt to get them to, adopted. And that's hard, because most homes aren't equipped for that. And I just think it's something that we don't really think about, like if your house has a wheelchair ramp for one reason or another, you might be, equipped to, or if you're willing to put in a wheelchair ramp, just something like that.
Or even being somebody who can say, like, I'm going to come over and watch the baby for an hour so you can just take a nap.
Right.
You don't even have to go out for a date. I mean, heck, I'm not even looking for that anymore. Like sleep would...
Just a little bit of a break. No, I think
it's just a little bit of a break. And it's more than parenting, because I've done both, in the sense that it's complicated because, you're getting home visits. You have to do, a lot of these foster families have to do visits with parents. So that can be like 3 to 4 hours a week they're doing that. There's a lot involved.
I also think with my experience, all of our kids, raising them wasn't identical, but aspects of it rhymed. You know what I mean? Where we would be going through something and I would go, oh, okay, well, this worked for Ellie, so it'll work. This worked for Isley, or this worked for, Isley, so it'll work for Eliza. And, when it's not your biological child, you don't have kind of those background markers of like, well, here's what worked with their siblings. You're dealing with a child who has their own set of genetics, their own set of, in some cases were exposed to drugs in utero and all of these pieces. And the value of, okay, I would love to do foster care, but we're not able to do it in our home. Okay, well, you can give 3 hours though. That would let somebody to kind of recover, feel human again, kind of come up for air, and ton of value there.
And I think being a part of that village is just as important as being a foster parent.
Yeah.
Because that enables the people who are called to be foster parents to be able to continue to do their work.
Yeah, and I think there's a piece too where, in terms of spreading the gospel, if we talk about, there's the verse in the book of James, like, God bless you, be at peace, but I do nothing to care for your physical needs. Then you're not unlike the heathens, or misquoting it potentially, but. The point is if you want a captive audience for the gospel, you have a chance to model for, let's say, you said, teens sometimes struggle to get adopted. A teenager who is forming their view of what's next for them in life, you can cast a vision for what healthy marriage can look like, what a Christian marriage can look like, what a Christian family can look like. And you can do that by opening your home and allowing it to be a stage to say, hey, this is the life we've chosen. This is the life we have. And we want to, and we want to model for you the beauty of it. We want to model for you how great living for Jesus can be. And, I can't think of a more effective way to spread the gospel, because even if that kid doesn't go on to be a Christian, when they hear somebody talking badly about Christians, they're going to say, I had these Christian foster parents though, and they were fantastic to me. And, I think that really matters also.
I love that. Yeah, I do. Yeah. And that is, one of the things with Chloe and her sister. Her sister actually goes to the Hershey school now, so we're able to see her more regularly, which is fun. But just, it's important for me. We're actually going to be adopting Chloe. I don't know if I shared that with you or not, but that is something that we're going to be doing. I'm super excited. It should happen probably by September of this year. But that's one of the most important things that I've prayed over her, is having that relationship with Jesus is important. I think my personal testimony is, I think Jesus knew she was coming to me always. And I think she was meant for me. And I think she offers us healing and growth and challenges. Oh, she challenges us in so many wonderful, wonderful ways as a soon-to-be 2-year-old. And, God, I also think God lets you know. There's just those moments that happen in life, and you're just like, there's God. He's right there.
Yeah, a couple of sermons ago, I preached on the concept of like we're adopted into the family of God, and how there's never in history been an accidental adoption. It's every adoption that's ever happened was an act of volition. Where a child was chosen to be brought into a family. And I think it's so powerful that the New Testament uses adoption imagery, right? Because it's like we weren't born of natural causes into the family of God. We were chosen and pulled out and welcomed in and grafted into the family. And, we do see that in foster care and adoption and in those people who have chosen to do that. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being willing to do it.
Absolutely. And I hope that I'm able to really inspire people to just think a little bit more. If people want an opportunity to really make a difference, this is the way to do it. Yeah. And sometimes you don't see the difference right away, but with children, what's so amazing about kids is the impact you make on them today will impact them for the rest of their lives, even if you don't see it. But they remember. Right. So, for people who are looking to really make a difference and to really be the hands and feet of Christ, I think foster care is a great way to do that.
Yeah, it's a tangible way to do that for sure. Well, Maryanne, thank you so much for stopping in and chatting about this. And where can people maybe find more information if they want to go online and learn about things? I'm putting you on the spot in that regard.
No, I think Kobe's is a great place to look. Bethany Christian Services is a great place to look. I'm a great resource if people are ever, looking. There's so many ways, like even working for foster care closets is another way too that people can volunteer and do that type of work too.
So foster care closet is just, they have stuff that foster families can grab. Yeah.
Yep. And I know there's one opening. I'm not sure where in Lancaster, but there is one opening in a local church soon. And I know they're looking for volunteers. So there's tons of different ways you can support.
I was going to ask you, we're about to have all of our kids out of cribs, and I was about to ask, hey, instead of putting this on the curb, is there somewhere I can donate this? It's not immaculate, but it's functional.
No, absolutely. And I would say as long as like the cribs are, all the
safety
equipment is
standards
safe
and stuff,
and there's no recalls, because we know there's so many of them. Absolutely. Like I said, these kids come so quick, and you got to be able to react quickly. So that's a great way to, a great place to donate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Maryanne. I appreciate you taking the time, and excited for people to hear this.
Okay, awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Know and Follow podcast. This podcast is a production of Grace Community Church of Willow Street, located at 212 Peach Bottom Road in Willow Street, Pennsylvania. If you're looking for a place to worship, we'd love to have you join us. Our services are Saturdays at 6 p.m., Sundays at 8, 9:15, and 11 a.m. This podcast is hosted, produced, and edited by Pastor Addison Roberts, the digital pastor of Grace Community Church. You can learn more about our church at gccws.net. Our theme music is Only the Brave Run Wild by Sounds Like Sander. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.